Well, hello, and thank you for joining me for another Alex on Tech and ITY TV interview. Today, I'm joined by Stephen Keys. He's the chairman of the IFS Foundation and also the president of the Asia Pacific, Japan, Middle East, and Africa part of IFS, which is the Global Enterprise Applications Company. So, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
So I thought we'd just start at the beginning and just simply ask you. IFS has been around since the 80s, and it was known then as the Industrial and Financial Services Company, which is still a focus of the business today. But what does IFS offer to companies today in 2021? And what are your products and services? What makes IFS different?
Fantastic. Thank you. Well, today we're a fast-growing enterprise software business. We develop software for companies here in Australia and, of course, around the world. Companies who manufacture and distribute goods, companies who build and maintain assets and manage service-focused operations. We deliver software capability across the domains of service management, enterprise resource planning, and of course, enterprise asset management. And we do that for well-known names. You probably have heard of NEC, Rolls-Royce, Emirates, closer to home, Australian Submarine Corp, Multiplex, and then further afield, folks like the US Navy, Panasonic, Ericsson, about a roll call of about 10,000 customers worldwide. Why would I say that we are different? Well, our software is built to meet the needs of the industries that we serve. We try to combine deep industry and functional domain expertise with intelligent and autonomous capabilities that can be put to work from day one. We like to offer real choice in how our customers deploy software, whether that's in our cloud or your own data center. And fundamentally, our platform is simple to use, simple to tailor, making it easy for organizations to extend and connect to business and enterprise application landscapes. Final point I'd say, just to set ourselves in a competitive context, I think at a time when many companies are disappointed, perhaps with other ERP vendors, and they're seemingly, how could I put it, arrogant imposition of strict one-sided rules regarding upgrades and system modernization programs, we like to think we offer something different. We've instead chosen to focus on customer experience based on the principles of choice, of flexibility, and of value. Now, by giving our customers freedom of choice in terms of deployment model, easy access to innovative technologies, top-level lifecycle support, we've strengthened the value proposition that creates value for our customers and growth opportunities for our partners.
Yeah, look, nobody likes to be dragged kicking and screaming into a digital transformation that is imposed. You want your customers to want to come on the journey with you, and that sounds
Absolutely.
like what you're doing. Otherwise, you wouldn't be in the position that you're in today. Now,
100%.
You recently underwent a global brand refresh. So can you please tell us what the new branding represents for IFS, its employees, and your customers?
Yeah, of course. Well, as you know, I think we recently launched IFS Cloud. It was a pretty significant product launch in our overall company history. Some 38 years of doing business. It was a fundamental product launch. I guess going through that exercise led us to evaluate how we position ourselves in the market. We also recognize that our fastest growth is coming from companies, fast growth businesses, traditional businesses, coming to us and they're wanting to use service as a differentiator in their business model. What does that mean? It means that as competition increases for customers in our key verticals, they want to leverage technology and industry domain knowledge to create what we call moments of service that delight their customers and help to create competitive advantage and profitable growth. This is the opportunity that IFS Cloud affords our customers, and the opportunity that IFS, I should say, affords its customers with the release of IFS Cloud. So that was on the one hand. On the other hand, personally, I feel like we've been the industry's best kept secret for way too long. The launch of IFS Cloud was the right platform, I think, to put IFS as a company on a platform. The opportunity, I suppose, that the rebranding opportunity more broadly gives us a chance to reconnect with existing customers, open up a new conversation with organizations that may not have heard of us before, And a brand refresh, I guess, in all of that context, just made sense. We wanted to have a bit of fun. I don't know if you saw some of the executions, but we took out some placements with some fairly iconic landmarks around the world: Times Square, Piccadilly Circus, Shibuya Crossing, the Burj Khalifa. We had this huge logo up and down the building there. An opportunity to celebrate that brand, our people, and who we are as a business. And I think that branding process will continue, right? And the way we're going to express that brand moving forward is by telling stories about how our customers have achieved those moments of service in the way they deploy our software.
Yeah, well, it's an ethos that you have to embody to your own customers. They have to be getting those moments of service and moments of delight from using IFS software. And so obviously, you wouldn't be here talking about it today if you weren't achieving that. You wouldn't still be in business, and you wouldn't have gone through all this trouble. But talking about IFS Cloud, that was launched in March at your major conference. So, can you give us a bit more detail on what IFS Cloud does? What are the new major features going forward? And what are the pain points that this new version is obliterating for customers?
Okay, thank you. As I mentioned previously, we identified pretty early on that our fastest growth market is companies, let's say fast growth companies, traditional businesses that are wanting to use service as a differentiator. The need to deliver better service is it's a push and a pull. It's being pushed by companies that are wanting to create new revenue streams, who want to improve customer satisfaction and improve customer retention. And at the same time, there's a pull factor going on from their customers who are demanding more services and who are demanding better quality service. I think that the companies that recognize the importance of service today in their business model face a challenge. They face a challenge in bringing their existing systems together to deliver these amazing moments of service. And I think this is where IFS Cloud comes in. Unlike our competitors who are trying to address this with a cobbled together stack of tools that need a lot of integration, we've fundamentally rewritten our platform from scratch. And that has a positive material effect on so many levels. In pure technical terms, using modern programming approaches, you get benefits in terms of efficiency, right? So less computing power, cheaper, faster. It means that emerging technologies like machine learning, artificial intelligence, they can be embedded as a capability throughout the entire value proposition. We've also built IFS Cloud within a single platform, right? So you remove that integration complexity, you lower the total cost of ownership, and I see those as big benefits for our customers. It's modular, so companies can start by addressing an immediate need with the reassurance that IFS Cloud can adapt and scale to their future needs. It can be deployed in our managed cloud environment, in the customer's own data center, in some third-party cloud environment with complete functional parity. So if I was to summarize the benefit statements around IFS Cloud, I would say the industry expertise that's pre-built into the software itself to minimize the need for any form of configuration or customization. One simple platform, innovation embedded, sense of giving customers choice of residency with no loss of functionality. And if there was a fifth and final point, I would say, we've backed that up with a real top-level lifecycle management experience, so that customers get a really good, solid, we'd like to even think delightful customer experience when they engage with us. What does that mean? You talked about pain points there earlier. I would say a common challenge for customers in Australia is managing their people, their customers, their assets in an effective and integrated way. You need to share data across all of these different systems that manage these groups in order to create these moments of service, right? And to think properly about how you manage your customers, how you support them, how you frankly delight them, and to find new ways to create revenue as you grow, and to do so with maximum efficiency. And by that I mean profitability. That's certainly why customers like organizations, I should say, like ServiceStream and Qantas and Australian Submarine Corp, Atherton, a manufacturing company here in Australia, and Resolute Mining have all chosen IFS.
And look, I mentioned digital transformation before. I mean, you've had to transform yourselves into this new cloud system that's, very integrated, so that you can help your customers transform what they're doing. And this process is ongoing and continual. I'm sure that your engineers are working on, as would to be expected, newer versions of the features that will come next year and the year after that, which is going to improve the service that the companies that are your customers can deliver. And it's just a non-stop process.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. The one of the things that's quite interesting, you mentioned our engineering community. One of the unique attributes of IFS, we might get to talk about it a little bit later on in relation to the IFS Foundation, is we have quite a large R&D capability in Sri Lanka.
Mm-hmm.
It was a very conscious choice some 23 years ago to build our R&D capability there. We're inordinately proud. It's been a fantastic achievement on their part, as well as other development teams around the world, to pull together IFS Cloud. Yes, it is an ongoing and continual development process, in much the same way that we view customers deploying IFS Cloud as an ongoing, continuous process. I think long gone are the days when organizations are thinking, big bang ERP deployment, heavily customized, lock it down, don't touch it for 15, 20 years. The world just doesn't work like that anymore.
Yeah.
I mentioned, Atherton is a great example. They've been a customer of ours for more than a dozen years. When we first started out, very traditional business model, manufacturing on the one hand, profit center, service management, cost center, right? Doing all the maintenance and support. These days, their customers are demanding a service-oriented business model. The servitization agenda has hit home. Suddenly, manufacturing cost center, services profit center.
Yeah.
And instead of having two separate systems, you've got this kind of continual figure of eight taking place where the systems are integrated and interacting. It is necessary for IFS to continue to evolve its platforms so that we continue to meet the changing demands of our customers and by extension, their customers as well.
Yeah, and as we all know, the world has changed a lot. I mean, we'll talk about COVID in a moment, but that is a huge change that has digitally accelerated everything. But, we've had this trend of centralization, decentralization. I remember when my father was working in the public service, he would have these Wang terminals, which were all centralized. And then we had the PC revolution. And then, with smartphones and tablets, you talk to Siri or Google Assistant, it's all in the cloud. But now, of course, with iOS 15, the Siri is going to be completely on device. I mean, I suppose it'll go to the web when it needs to find results for you.
Sure.
But we have this trend. So it's exactly the same with cloud. Cloud, it's software as a service. I first remember hearing about software as a service back in the year 2000. That was the first time. I mean, obviously we had online services before then, but that was sort of the first time I remember hearing SaaS. And but of course, hybrid solutions have been a big thing, and companies have chosen to do, whether it's fully cloud or hybrid or a mixture. Well, hybrid is, of course, a mixture of the two. Which are your customers choosing? Obviously, depends on those customers, but what are your thoughts on that, and how are your customers deploying IFS Cloud?
Yeah, that's a fair question. Our experience is that more customers are choosing cloud. We find our customers find that the business case is compelling. Whether that's a business case that's based on security, agility, scalability, sustainability.
Yeah.
Sustainability is a really, really important point. With increasing kind of regulatory demands around that. Central kind of larger data centers are proving to be incredibly more efficient from an energy consumption perspective. It might be resilience, it might be uptime, it might be reduced costs. Gosh. So that there is a compelling business case. I think what I would say is it's important for us as a software vendor. We're committed to giving our customers choice. So while the majority of customers do opt for cloud, and in 2020 we saw a 60% increase year on year in our cloud revenues, despite the fact that we've seen that, we still think it's important to give our customers the choice. They have the option to deploy how they wish. Right, and we believe that's what customer centricity is all about. Right, we see some of our peers bullying their customers into the cloud. We think that customers ought to go when they are ready to go. We think it makes sense. We think the business case stacks up, but we want to give our customers choice.
So IFS Cloud is what we've been talking about, but what are some of the other products and services that IFS offers?
Well, IFS Cloud itself actually represents, one simple platform within which we contain all of the capability that exists across the IFS product portfolio. So if you think about, our capabilities in EAM, in ERP, in field services management, it is all available within that layered application architecture, so that customers are able to deploy, in a modular fashion as and when they're ready to grow into other areas. They can continue to go down a best of suite approach, which of course we'd recommend, or best of breed approach, and we have integration APIs that facilitate that. When we look at our product portfolio, clearly there is product strength there, good industry recognition, the Magic Quadrants of this world. More importantly, we're particularly proud of the kind of peer insight review scores. I think that comes from the depth of our industry domain knowledge, combined with focus on customer success. And when I talk about customer success, every engagement that we kick off, we like to start with defining a proper business case, linking business strategies to specific detailed workflows and processes and systems. We build in industry benchmarks and KPIs that are preloaded into the model, so we can really enable our customers to assess their current performance and to set realistic goals for future performance that are linked to specific measurable outcomes. And we can then demonstrate the specific functional mechanisms in IFS Cloud that will realize those outcomes using, wherever possible, pre-configured capability that helps accelerate time to value and reduce the total cost of ownership. The trick is, though, right? It's great to build a business case. What we can then do is we can import that business case into Scope Tool, which is our implementation methodology. That enables us to then moderate the implementation approach to prioritize where the need is demonstrably greatest. Should we move into implementation together? If the customer says, yep, they like that implementation approach, we can then use that same business case within the system to measure the results at the end of the project. So we've got this kind of full life cycle support of the business case to make sure that we get the results that we set out to achieve. So, the products are fantastic. The flagship products are there. We'd love to be able to talk about them. But for us, bringing that to life, strong business case, and using that to inform the entire customer life cycle, I think that's a key differentiator.
And you've already mentioned a number of different customers. I don't know if there's any other customers or customer success stories you want to talk about, but have there been any customers that have used IFS Cloud or IFS products and services in new and exciting ways that you hadn't necessarily anticipated, and have surprised you and you've gone, wow, great?
That's a good question. Certainly we could talk about, we've got great customers. We look at the industries that we serve, the service management, the Carlsbergs, Panasonic, ServiceStream, aerospace defense. There's some familiar names there with Qantas and Australian Submarine Corp. Could go on with the different industry sectors, but thinking about the question that you asked, right?
And I ask it because it's customers that can often be the best addition to your R&D department, because they've got use cases that, they've got a problem they need solved, and they contact you and say, hey, your software doesn't do this, help us to achieve this. And then you go, well, that's great, and we've got a bunch of other customers that can do that too. So, that happens to all companies that are successful at any rate.
One of the things that's come up recently, there's two examples. I've just thought of another one that's just come in, and I'll share that now. One of the things we've seen increasingly is a dialogue taking place between IFS and its customers. We've taken on a sustainability agenda ourselves in the last couple of years. We're seeking to reduce our carbon emissions over a period of time. We hope to become carbon neutral by 2025. So we've been thinking about ways in which we can develop capability within our own software. IFS runs IFS, right? So we've been thinking about how do we use our own system to properly capture where carbon emissions are taking place. Can we put a price on those carbon emissions? Can we impose that price into the individual market units to get decision makers and procurement managers really thinking carefully about the decisions that they're making? And we're really enjoying the dialogue that's taking place between IFS and the challenges we face as a company and our customers who are also interested in that sustainability agenda. So certainly that kind of collaborative product development work is something that I think we do very well. But a really good cutting edge technology example that I can share with you is a company called Munters. It's a global leader in energy efficient and sustainable air treatment solutions. They have, they look after kind of demanding individual applications, industrial applications, and the agricultural sector as well. I don't know, 3,500 employees. They manufacture, they sell, and more importantly, they maintain specialist equipment throughout its operations. I think 30 countries around the world. The interesting part of their business model is keeping customers' equipment operating effectively. Right, it's key to the company achieving higher customer satisfaction scores, customer retention. The servitization agenda has hit. Right, so it's not about selling the equipment; it's about providing the maintenance and seeing that as a unique and new source of revenue. Therefore, equipment uptime is a really, really important indicator there. Problem statement, of course. If you have a business model that's heavily reliant, as Munters' business model was, on completing on-site visits, often they would have to do 1 or even 2 visits even before the initial installation of the equipment. Munters engaged IFS. We'd been toying with an idea about something called remote assistance, which is a form of augmented reality to enable services engineers to be able to get access to a site, get visibility, and for want of a better term, interact with that site whilst not being there in person. So we began to look at some tools that could enable their contractors, their technicians to collaborate remotely with third line support, and ultimately to allow Munters to interface remotely with its customers to reduce the need for as many on-site visits. That's got a sustainability agenda associated with it. It's got a reduction in carbon emissions, value proposition, and it's also got a customer satisfaction, opportunity as well, and being able to respond to something far more quickly. You can improve efficiency by being able to perform a remote resolution, or you can diagnose a critical step before you send someone out there, so that you have the right people with the right tools going on site. And our remote assistance technology enables Munters to do exactly that. The cool thing about it, and I was quite surprised in some ways, but once Munters had got their head around how they could use this, the deployment time was 2 weeks. Was 2 weeks to go live. It could be easily integrated into their existing systems. They could rapidly deploy it. The training uptime was very quick. The technicians just intuitively understood how it was supposed to be used. And today they're now using it at a number of sites around the world, and it's achieving a lot of benefits for the company. And I think that combination of traditional technology and cutting edge technology to create a better service outcome and creating efficiency gains for the company itself, that's at the heart of what IFS is all about.
Sure. And 3 things. One, obviously, is the COVID safety implications. You don't have to have people on site as much. And we'll talk about COVID
100%.
More in a second. But secondly, how long would it have taken normally for Munters to get on site? You were saying 2 weeks. Would it have been double that or longer? I mean, clearly the time saving is a great thing.
Well, the 2 weeks, to get the system up and running in a couple of weeks was, and I think it was testament in that particular instance to Munters being really clear about the use case. And of course, you mentioned COVID. Of course, that that's a compelling driver to want to resolve something.
But normally it would have taken longer.
For sure, but the majority of that time, the technology itself can be rapidly deployed, right? And one of the things that we're really interested in is how organizations now are saying, hey, how can we stand up an MVP? How can we get a minimum viable product up and running, get it in use, and learn from that MVP?
And then
that's something that Munters took that approach, and I think that's a really sensible approach. We can do some sprints afterwards. We can check things out. We can modify, but getting something up, proving the value of the proposition, getting it deployed into production, you've got a much better learning curve, and you get to value that much more quickly. So it worked very well.
And then my third question, just on that, before we move on to the next question, was, I mean, did they have people with cameras on their heads, or did they have flying drones that were looking around and sending back a live video feed? Did they have to load remote access software onto their systems? How did they access it and learn about everything remotely. And I'm assuming it must be something to do with what I just spoke about, all those
so you've got that kind of that telestating thing going on, right? So you've got two users that can collaborate and interact in real time, so they can freeze image. You can use hand gestures, so it works on a simple mobile phone. And I hasten to add, I'm able to use it myself. We've found a very simple, fun use case inside our own organisation, which is we can't travel around as much as we want to, but we like to hand out awards from time to time, and people deliver outstanding service. So actually using the tool to kind of remotely hand over an award to someone has been kind of a cool way of using the technology in an unintended purpose. Pretty simple to use. Standard Android, iOS phones works perfectly well. iPads, whatever.
I know that when friends ring me and they've got some sort of problem with their printer, well, you can't use TeamView or AnyDesk to connect to that. So we fire up a FaceTime or other video call, and then they're showing me the screen of their printer and tapping on things, and that's how you got to do it these days. I mean, thank God for that, because it would be much more difficult otherwise. And it's certainly, all this modern technology has changed the way that we can interact with people, and it's
for sure
revolutionized businesses. Now, just quickly, because I do have a few other questions, but what was the spark that motivated the founders to start IFS in the 1980s? They must have been passionate about this and could see this was something that wasn't being done to their satisfaction.
Yeah, funny story. A pretty cool story that relates to us, our brand, and our logo, actually. So 4 undergraduates in Sweden, looking to earn a bit of money during the summer recess, and there was a power plant that they'd heard of that was going for a maintenance review program, and they'd reached out to the university seeking some support to go through that maintenance review, and so they took the gig. So over a summer period, they participated in the maintenance review, and actually that engagement formed the genesis of the ideas that led on to our first bit of software, which is an enterprise asset management solution. But the funny story is that when they went on site, it was in a reasonably remote part of Sweden. Hotels nearby were quite expensive, so our dear founders decided to camp outside the customer's office in a tent. It must have been something of a surprise to the customer, I'm sure. But they when they were challenged, they said, "Oh, it's got nothing to do with cost. It's about staying as close to the customer as possible." Yeah, okay, good on them. But the funny story is that it's a true story. The colour of the tent that they slept in was purple, and that explains why our logo is purple.
Well, there you go. And obviously it mustn't have been during the winter, or they had good clothing.
Yeah, for sure, not during the winter, for sure.
Now, Stephen, you're the president of the IFS Foundation, and you did mention, did talk a bit about sustainability, but you and IFS are obviously very passionate about corporate social responsibility and sustainability. So can you please tell us about these initiatives?
Yeah, for sure. We recognise the responsibility that we carry to play our part and be an upstanding member of a wider global community. Our relative strength affords us the opportunity to give something back to the communities that we serve, that serve us so well. And I would break down our kind of broader sustainability work into 3 areas. Education. We have an education program. We work with, I think, almost 80 universities around the world. Scholarships, grants, IT equipment, as well as practical knowledge, internships and mentorships for students. Carbon emissions. So this program started in 2019. We've been looking at ways in which we can, first of all, track and then reduce our carbon footprint. So consolidating global real estate, reducing our car fleet, and we believe that we'll be able to achieve carbon neutrality by 2025, which would be great. And then philanthropy, right? So the IFS champions and partners with the IFS Foundation. That's a charitable trust that's been set up to alleviate poverty in remote and rural parts of Sri Lanka. I mentioned before about our presence in Sri Lanka. We have over 1/3 of our workforce there, global support, R&D, and a bunch of other activities. So it feels really appropriate to give something back to that particular community that serves us all so well. We have things like CSR days that enable people to pursue volunteering, activities of their choice in their own local community. Mm-hmm. But the IFS Foundation, the way in which the foundation raises its money is not from IFS funding it per se. Rather, we ask IFS staff to engage in fundraising activities around the world. it creates this kind of civic and moral worth. It brings everyone together. It binds us and unites us in a common cause. And by using a foundation and really focusing on long-term investment, we can make an impact, right? So we're focusing on things like access to fresh water, hospital renovation. We've been rebuilding schools. We've been providing, employment opportunities, a whole range of things to create, autonomous and self-sustaining communities. That long-term impact we're particularly proud of.
Absolutely. Now, for the COVID question, which is even more relevant today as we're recording, with Sydney undergoing a new COVID scare. But,
yes,
the question I ask everybody, because it's been spoken about so much, is how did COVID accelerate IFS's own operations? I mean, I guess in some ways you've spoken about some of those things because you brought IFS Cloud to life, and you must have been working on that over 2020 and obviously before. But also, how did it affect the IFS Foundation and the CSR responsibilities? But let's talk about the business side of it first.
Okay, for sure. So how to put this? We learned. What did we learn? We learned that while the pandemic itself is incredibly serious, right, and we put into place a range of initiatives to try and support our staff and help our customers and partners wherever we could. Actually, the potential impact on mental health and well-being is just as important. That's certainly a key message that we took away. We therefore chose to invest in a series of programs to promote mental health and well-being in the workplace. We use something called the Let's Talk program, which is actually a program that was built here in Australia through the CCC Foundation. And the Let's Talk program is about just equipping people with skills. It's very simple. It's spot the telltale signs, acknowledge concerns, listen with intent, know how to follow up. Very simple skills to create a sense of psychological safety in the workplace, create an environment where people can talk safely about any problems they might be experiencing. We have about 10% of our regional workforce now as Let's Talk mentors, and that's certainly had an impact, I feel, in terms of that sense of connectedness despite the isolation. It's enabled us, we see things like employee engagement scores and so on and so forth. But fundamentally, I can think of specific examples where we've been able to reach out and stay engaged with folks that may be doing it a little bit tough. And I think that's really important. That's really, really valuable. More broadly, thinking about the IFS Foundation, trying to play our part as it relates to Sri Lanka. We've begun to sponsor now the 1333 toll-free crisis support line that exists in Sri Lanka, we're continuing to support them and some of the fundraising events that they're undertaking this year.
So, can you tell us a little bit about your history in the world of tech?
I'm a complete charlatan. I've got a humanities degree, and I'm not afraid to say it. Heaven forbid. Look, I started my career in the music industry. Goodness, I don't know quite how it ended up in IT, but I shifted across. I've undertaken spells with Primavera, the enterprise project management software company. That was before that Oracle acquired them. Mm-hmm. I did 8 years there, 9 years with a company called Software AG. A German kind of listed on the Frankfurt Stock Exchange, middleware company, business process management software. Most recently, before IFS, I was CEO of a company called FTS Group, a fantastic company here in Australia. They're one of the largest privately held IT services businesses here in Australia. I had plenty of fun there. And now I'm with IFS.
So one of the other questions I'd like to ask as we get towards the end of the interview is just if you could please share your first memory of your first computer.
First memory of a first computer. Wow. Okay. This is going to age me, I think, quite badly. It would be a Commodore 64. Yeah. What was it? Were they 8 bits at the time when they first came out?
They were 8-bit, 8-bit computers. 16-bit was the Amiga, that which came after.
That's right.
Some years later.
That's right.
And you had the tape drives and the disc drives.
Oh goodness me! I'm thinking 1982.
I think it came out in 84.
Okay, there you go. That'd be about right.
Yeah. Because
that'd be about right.
I got my first computer in 1979. Dad bought a computer called the Exidy Sorcerer. At the time, the Commodore PET, which was the computer in Buck Rogers in the 25th century. and the Apple One were the computers of the time. And then you later on came the Apple IIs, and it wasn't until 1983 that we had the Apple II in school when I was in year 3. So yeah, they were the glory days of the early days of computing, when you could sit down and you'd buy the computer magazines and you could type in all the games in BASIC.
I remember that. You'd make the games up. I remember the first one I wrote was like line 10, type Stephen Keyes' Ace, line 20, go to line 10, line 30.
BASIC, yeah.
It's shocking. That's about the sum total of my... I tell you one thing, though. You talked about digital transformation.
Yeah.
I find it really interesting to see my parents, they're in the UK, when my mum can now access YouTube via her smart TV, or I have my dad recommending me apps to download, I know that digital transformation has taken place.
Yeah, that's it. Well, I've got my mum talking to Alexa. She loves to ask it to play music, and she asks questions, and she asks it to play the news and the weather reports, and it's that natural language interface that Star Trek promised, which we now take for granted in many aspects of their lives.
Sure.
That's it. So look, as we get to the end, I've got 3 more questions to ask. So the third last one is to ask how you think the industry will evolve over the next couple of years, and then how you think it might evolve through to, say, 2030.
Wow. Okay. So I'll look at it from the perspective of IFS and how we aspire to evolve. We hope to become the undisputed leader in this in software for companies who want to use service as a differentiator. Our pace of growth has been 25% or more over the last few years. I get that as a $1 billion company, it might get harder to do the more we grow, but we've been consistent in delivering it for the past few years. We expect continued growth moving forward. I think we've got a differentiated platform that should see us leapfrog our competitors. I think there are some legacy players there that will be able to leapfrog in the coming years. Certainly, I think it will be important for us to continue to build out, a vibrant and diverse partner ecosystem. We've been concentrating a lot of time and energy on that in the past couple of years, and I expect that will continue. That will help us scale quickly and effectively. And I think the constant is you've got to continue to care about your customer's success. If you do that, if it remains part of our decision-making process today and well into the future, I think that we should be able to continue that kind of trajectory, and making sure we put them there at the heart of what we do will frankly keep us honest on that journey that we're on.
So my second last question is to ask you if you could please share the best piece of advice you've received in life to help you get where you are today.
A couple. I could tell you about the first job I had where I was nearly fired after 6 weeks of probation, and the MD hauled me into his office, and he said, "You've done this wrong and that wrong and this wrong and this wrong," but he said, "Tell you what, I'll give you credit. You always turn up on time, and you're always the last to leave, and no one can take that away from you." So I think I learned then that maybe hard work is it covers up a lot of sins. But if a piece of advice that resonates, that really sticks with me: success is a factor of performance and expectation. Success is a factor of performance and expectation. I think that's a really, there's a lot to that. And I hold that dear to my heart. I think on that quite a lot in different phases of my career.
So my final question is to ask if you could share your final message to ITWire viewers and readers, and to your current and future customers and partners.
Yeah, of course. And first of all, thank you very much for the opportunity to talk with you today. I really enjoyed it. I would say, I'd go back to a point I made earlier, that IFS has chosen very much to focus on customer experience based on the principles of choice, of flexibility, and of value. I feel that by giving customers freedom of choice in terms of deployment model, easy access to innovative technologies, and top-level lifecycle support, I think we offer a really, really powerful and a real different value proposition, one that is producing real value for our customers and sustainable, profitable growth opportunities for our partners. And we look forward to having our next conversation with those customers and with our partners, and hopefully with you also into the future.
Yeah, well, look, I always like to finish off by thanking you. So, Stephen Keys, Chairman of the IFS Foundation and President of the Asia Pacific, Japan, Middle East and Africa, part of IFS, which is a pretty big part of it. Thank you very much for your time.
Wonderfully diverse.
Yeah. I hope to speak to you again in the future, and I wish you the best of success. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.